Hi. Do you remember as a child when you would let your imagination just run wild? I've been thinking about this concept of imagination a lot this morning and over the past few days and weeks. And every morning I take my dog for a walk down to the beach. And this year in particular, this winter has been really incredible for mushrooms. There are big and little mushrooms growing all over the place, and they're all different and all unique. And to me, each one of them is so magical. And I've tried to capture the magic of them in images lately, but just to be able to sit with them and admire them and lock into that incredible imagination and magic that they hold for me and my inner child, it's a really incredible thing to do. There's so many magical things down at the park and at the beach every morning when we go down there, and I'm trying to find a way to tap into that more and more of the time. There's a quote or a saying that I like to have that is from the book, and it is that the greatest gift that you can give someone is your childhood imagination. When I was probably about the same age that my children are now, 8 or 9, I was taken with my family to a wool farm, I believe it was. And in my memory, it was just across the border down in the United States, maybe in Point Roberts or somewhere on the coast, the West Coast. And part of the tour that we were on took us down to this beach. And I remember climbing down these wooden steps that seemed to go down forever, down to this rocky beach, and it was really rainy or overcast and cloudy and sort of misty down near the water. I loved scanning the beach for finds, and I mean I still do that to this day. This morning I came home with a pocket full of beach glass and seashells, and one of the seashells that I came home with today, I didn't realize it at the time, but it reminded me of this seashell that I found on this beach way back in the day when I was at this wool farm. And there was something so incredibly magical and powerful about the seashell. When I picked it up and looked at it, it had this band sort of around the middle of it that looked like to me like it was inscribed with this secret language, like it was written in runes or some sort of fairy language. And to me, my imagination just went wild with the possibilities of who or what could have written on this seashell and what it was trying to tell me. I kept that seashell with me until I was in my 20s, and for me it held so much wonder and power. And I gifted that seashell to someone when I was in my 20s, and at the time, and I write about this in the book, I tell the story in the book, it seemed like such a funny gift to give someone, but at the moment that it happened, it wasn't either. The idea behind the shell was more about just the shell itself. It was the idea of what that shell meant to me and the imagination that it held for me, and that even into my 20s I still believed that there was something powerful and magical about this seashell. And that was the gift that I was giving this person, more than just the shell itself. It's what the shell really symbolized. I'll show you the shell that I found this morning, and it's got those same little inscriptions. I can't quite get it close enough to the camera, but it's got the same little inscriptions around the top of it and on a few places on it here. And that openness to thinking about something in a different way rather than just seeing it as, wormholes. It was something much more interesting and much more intricate than that. And that really is what our childhood imagination is all about. I came to learn that the power of our imagination is one of our greatest gifts. It's just like our thoughts become things. We have to tap into that creative, imaginative part of ourselves in order to shift the reality that becomes ours. If we keep having the same thoughts and keep thinking things on repeat, then we're going to keep experiencing our lives in the same way, because those are the things that will become attracted to us. But when we're able to push our boundary of our imagination and explore sort of that limiting edge, the leading edge of thought, then that's when our realities begin to grow and expand into that same space. When I was in grade 6, I did a science experiment on visualization. And I remember the science experiment itself probably didn't do all that well in the whole grand scheme of things, but the message that I took away from that experience was incredibly formative for me. The idea that when you visualize something, when you take the time to stop and think about it consciously and over again and practice that thought, then the likelihood of that becoming true increases significantly. For this particular science experiment, a friend and I took 3 groups of students. And the first group, we got them to practice shooting basketballs into the hoop. The second group was sort of like our, I can't think of the word for it, but they were the group that just sat out and didn't practice and didn't visualize. And then the third group we took into the art classroom and talked them through a visualization of them practicing and shooting the hoop and getting the ball into the hoop every time. So then when it came time to retest all 3 groups on their abilities to shoot basketballs into the hoop, the group that did the visualization had far more success than the group that actually practiced, and more success than the group that didn't practice or visualize. This is definitely something that's been known in sports psychology for many, many, many years, but when we apply that knowledge of visualization and take it to another level of imagination and creativity, then our experiences really formulate and shape into that creative space.